I am.
Hey everybody, it's Kat, and I want to welcome you to this episode of Backstory Sessions. I'm joined today by my co-host Willie. Hey Willie.
Hey, Kat.
Oh my, I am so excited for this episode today because this brings back so many memories. I'm a big fan.
Oh, thank you.
Yes,
Kat.
we have Lobo with us today, and Willie, one of the things,
Lobo.
yes, um,
Sheriff Lobo?
well, this is Lobo from my childhood.
Oh,
I have so many songs, like my and memories with my dad of just hearing these songs, and then later they would apply to different parts of my life. So the thing intriguing about today, besides all of that, because I know there are going to be many listeners out there that are just like me, like these songs take them back to certain moments in their own life. But the first song that he wrote, he just recently recorded and released. And I don't know that we've ever had another guest where, that was the situation. I mean, like usually a first song is like either really bad, or like they feel like really good and they go ahead and like release it. So this, I can't wait to hear what the backstory of this is. So,
okay.
he grew up in Florida, and now like it's almost a full circle and we're just gonna find out everything. So,
Okay.
Lobo, I want to welcome you to Backstory Sessions, and I am really excited to have you as our guest today.
Well, thank you. It's
You know,
nice to be here.
well, I can still recall the wheat fields of St. Paul. I've just been dying to say that because, your lyrics are so timely to yet timely to the moment, but then they're unforgettable over a lifetime, really.
Well,
Uh,
thank you.
so, how did this start out for you? You were, growing up in Florida, and was music and writing like, where did this begin? Were you just that child prodigy, or how did it become a part of what you were to do later?
Well, it was kind of a lark in that a guy down the street threw away this old guitar and asked me if I could have it, and I took it and learned. Back in those days, you knew three chords, you could play every song on the radio. And then we did a talent show at high school, and back in the late '50s, kids had never heard live music that of that style, what's on the radio. And then I don't, Kat, I can't tell you why it was so easy for me, but I wasn't overly technical about things. If I heard something like, I don't know, years ago, there was a song called Hey Paula. And actually, it was done by a guy named Paul and Paula. And I was convinced it was Paul doing a falsetto. So I would sing the song like the girl and the guy because that's the way I heard it. Well, nobody else would play the song because there wasn't a girl in the group. And that's the kind of stuff I just always played what people wanted to hear, not worrying about whether I was really playing the right chords and stuff. And I've always regretted not having to be a better musician than I am because it just everything seemed to work. And I don't have an explanation for it.
So, did anyone else in your family play an instrument or sing? Like, did you have a musical, like your siblings or mom and
Well,
dad?
no, well, oddly enough, you hit on something that is strange. But my mother married my father and had my older brother, who's 3 years older than me, and then I guess they had another. They split up and they had a tryst of sorts, and along came me, and I never saw the guy, but he was actually in a traveling big horn band back in the 40s, or yeah, in the 40s. And my mother was a singer, just in college, you know. Anyway, that's how they got together. But he knew I existed. He knew that I was successful, but he chose not to make contact. Some of his brothers and stuff did. But what was so odd about it is, I guess I inherited from him the same trait because I didn't care if he called me or not. So over the years, I figured that out. You know, he gave me the shell to not be hurt by his indifference because I tend to have the same indifference about people. So anyway, that's how it start, how my background came. Now, the deal of playing in a band and all that other stuff. Uh, I as years went by and I was going to college and I was, you know, I could play 3 nights a week and make enough to pay everything it took to go to school and stuff. And so I was playing in a club one night and this guy came in and heard a song. It wasn't my song, it was just a song. And it ended up being Phil Gernhardt produced Abraham Martin and John and Let Your Love Flow and all the Snoopy verses. He was the connection. And that's how I got started. And he said, he made a statement to me. He said, listen, he says, you're an okay singer. He said, but no one is going to give you a hit song to record. So the only way you're going to ever have a future in music business is to write songs. And that's what I did.
Wow. So he tells you this and is Don't Leave Me Now, is that the first song?
You know, actually, the Don't Leave Me Now uh, was after I had made contact with him. But you know, this is a long time ago. Remember that song? I don't remember how I came up with writing it. I just remember singing it in the clubs, and this was after my first contact, but before I had written a song. And so I guess it was in that period where I was experimenting with writing, but I just remember people requesting it because as it ends up, most of the hits and stuff I had were ballads, and I don't remember what the inspiration was for writing it. I just, you know, the reason I did it now was I had that in the back of my mind. I kept hearing that chorus, and I said, I actually had to, I only knew the chorus in the second verse. And so I actually rewrote it or finished it recently. And that's how it came to be. And this is the beauty of the internet. You don't have to have anybody's approval to do it. You do it the way you want to do it. And I did it the way I would have done it years ago. I wasn't trying to be anything but a 50-year-old song that I recorded the way I did, and that's the whole way it came about.
Well, how interesting. I mean, that's quite a backstory to a creation, you know. It's very intriguing to me. Um, had you finished it when you first started it, do you think it would be the same song as it is today, or, has maturity and years given you a different perspective?
Oddly enough, I find, and because we're working on another project now that's for the website stuff, and we go back, and me personally, I never, I mean, I listened to the Beatles, of course, that was the inspiration to do everything, but I never tried to sound like anybody. And once I was initially successful, I stayed away from everything in order to keep whatever I did the same because it seemed to work. And whether this song would have passed scrutiny with the producer who called the shots back in those days, I have no idea because I can't recall if he ever heard the song or not. I know I had another song that was, my songs were mostly on adult contemporary station, you know, the stuff you hear in the elevators and that sort of stuff. But I had a song called "Don't Tell Me Good Night," which only came into the being because I was playing a tape with some songs from my producer, and we started talking, and it kept going. The tape kept running, and it got into the song, and I thought this "Don't Tell Me Goodnight" was so wishy-washy. Anyway, we ended up recording it. I think it got in the 30s or something, but it was real high on the adult contemporary chart. But that's you can't second guess or guess at all what how my producer would have viewed this song had I played him what I did now. I have no idea.
Well, how did it feel to pull the song back out and finish it?
Well, it was fun because it was going back to the way I originally did things, and I had a different sound. My all my records had a real strong strumming acoustical part, and this is the same thing. It's just it was very nostalgic doing it the way I did it because it was once again now we have Pro Tools, which are the computer based. I have more tracks in my behind me on my computer than I had at a big time studio back in the days. I'll tell you a fun thing. That's one of my favorite stories. Me and you had a dog named Boo, which is the uh,
Yes.
okay. That was recorded in New York in Jimi Hendrix Electric Lady Studio. Can you imagine that? And,
Oh
and
my
San,
goodness.
well, and Santana was in the Studio A, and we were in Studio B. And they came to work all night when we left to go eat hot dogs. That's the way it was.
Wow. I mean, what a memory that is.
Yeah.
So how did Lobo come to be your name?
Well, we had one. The first time I went to New York was in 1969 when the Mets won the pennant after losing for 100 years. The Mets never won in. And I wrote this song called "Happy Days in New York City," and it was about the Mets winning the thing. And I went to New York, and everybody thought it was a hit. And we recorded it live with strings, and I was just absolutely bowled over by what it sounded like, but it didn't do anything. And I used my name on that. And so when it came to Me and a Dog Named Boo was a song that everyone that heard it thought it was a hit. And so I'm thinking, man, that other thing was a stiff. And if anybody put my name to I might hurt anyway. And how the name came about was when I refer to Phil, that's Phil Gernhardt, the producer from back there. He said, make a list of names. And Lobo was on the list, and of course it means wolf in Spanish. And the original reviews, of course, were I was a group, and I've always stayed out of it. I mean, I did the minimal amount that I had to do to. I was on a few television shows and stuff, but I never wanted that part of it. And so hiding behind the name and them saying it's a group or whatever. Now Lobo is this fictional character, which uh, what's his name, Jason Momoa or whatever his name is. He it's a huge movie coming out. It's a cartoon kind of Supergirl, I think is the name of the movie. Anyway, so Lobo is all of a sudden all over the place. That has nothing to do with me, and that's fine. It's just for someone like me that enjoys the studio part of it and not having to be out front. It worked perfectly.
So did performing that's not your favorite part, like interacting with the fans or
Well, the way that I never, in the days of the first couple of hits, and even after, "I Love You Want Me" was the benchmark for me. It was so much bigger than all the rest of them put together. And even after that was out, um, I didn't have any confidence to sing my material. Like, let's say John Denver would go out there with his guitar and just sing all these songs. Oh, I didn't have that confidence. And I felt like they wouldn't want to hear the album cuts. And so I tried it with a band and stuff, and back in those days it was 5,000 screaming girls because they were doing what they did with the Beatles. It didn't make any difference who you were. And the only time I've toured, and I did this for 30 years, was in Asia because oddly enough, they know every song and they sing along. And I go over there, I did, and did 5 or 6 shows, every couple of years. So I did have some of that. As a matter of fact, there are videos out now of some live performances from back then, and they're believe me, they're far and few between, or few and far between, one or the other. Take your pick.
Well, where did you get your feedback as to, whether the songs were resonating with people? Was that just through the producer and
No,
how?
no, you got to remember back in those days, you could pick up Billboard, and the remarkable part of my career is the acceptance by the world. Even now, 75% of the income off of the songs and stuff comes from the rest of the world rather than the United States. And I've read hundreds of times how you helped me learn English because they could understand every word I said. I enunciated because my mother, when I was a little boy, said, "Don't you ever slur your words." And so you can understand every word on every song I've ever recorded. And that they even now I get an email from Nepal. Okay, now how's that? And the guy's saying, "Oh, you helped me learn English, and my grandmother and my father and blah blah blah." And so it was always a wonder to me to pick up Billboard, and they had all the foreign charts from all the countries, and there I'd be, and I just couldn't understand it. And I said, okay, and it was I'll tell you the way, another short story, real short. When my grandkids were, 4 and 6, and that age, where they didn't want to go to bed, my wife used to put him in the, we used to watch them on the weekends when our kids were getting their business started. She'd put on my greatest hits album. They'd be asleep in 3 minutes. And it was the softness and uh, it's the calming effect that my voice has on people. And that's still, I hear that all the time. I mean, it's just like when I've had a bad day, I put your greatest hits on, and I'm taken away and that sort of stuff. And once again, that's another thing that over the years, and even now, because my wife and I like to read the comments, and there was one the other day where a guy said, you know, when I was 5 years old, I can remember my parents dancing to your songs. They're 88 and 87. And he said, I hope I see their last dance. Well, that's the kind of stuff that just tugs at your heartstring, heartstring. You don't, it's hard to believe that you have that lasting effect on people. And I accept it, and it's just a strange thing. But that was that. Anyway,
Well, that's a great testament to what you created. I can imagine how that must make you feel. All right, Willie, this is fascinating. So, what would you like to know?
Well, the reason I said at the start of the interview, Sheriff Lobo, that's the only Lobo that I remember from my childhood.
yeah.
So, because I was born in 1973, but I'm sure that if I
Oh,
mentioned your name to my mother, she would
yep,
instantly know who you are.
that's right.
Uh, you were one of 6 children, is that correct?
Well, we were one of those he and she and us things. We had my mother had my brother and I, and my stepfather had 4 children. His wife had died, and then we had one. They had one, and so there were a total of 7.
Was that hard to growing up? Was that how was
No,
that having a blended
it really,
family?
well, one of them was killed in a water skiing accident. Another one was killed in a car wreck.
Oh
Uh,
goodness.
well, his family was a tragic family, an old New England. His great grandpa, one of them, designed the Indian head penny, and they were from an old New England. Uh, there's have stuff in the Smithsonian and stuff like that. And we had enough to do things we wanted. We grew up in a great environment, and no, we didn't. I was not to say a loner, but I didn't hang around. I was gone as much as I could. Just because I loved the freedom of going out and you know
Hmm.
woods and stuff like that.
Okay. Do you have a favorite song that you have done?
Uh, you know, Probably it's a song called "Don't Expect Me to Be Your Friend," and it's about after a relationship is over. Let's be friends. That didn't work. I guess, I guess it does for some people. It wouldn't work for me, but I've always liked it because my producer didn't, and so
Oh,
he
uh,
just said it was just an album cut, and he said you just do whatever you want to. So in the studio, he was on the phone, and I sang the backgrounds and everything, played all the guitars, and it was a top 10 record on the pop chart. So it was a big record, and I've always liked it because it was. No, he didn't. I guess that was the main reason.
and then what did he think after it became
Oh,
that?
he was the type that wouldn't have admitted that he didn't.
Oh,
This guy had, believe me, he had monumental mental problems, and he worked for Curb Records in Nashville for years and years and years. And I didn't see him since the late 70s. But at any rate, he ended up killing himself.
Yeah.
oh,
Shot himself in the mouth because he said
uh,
he was dying of cancer, and at the autopsy there was no cancer. So
uh,
that tells you he was haunted, and I don't know why, but he was a very hard person to deal with. And then I took him Jim Stafford, who was also successful, and we co-produced him, and that kind of complicated our relationship. But I always felt sorry for him in retrospect because he died with nothing. I mean, a lot of money, but in a big house in Nashville by himself, And I but it was a complicated relationship. But I realized that there was only one way with him, his way or no way, and I'm the only one down in St. Petersburg that did that. And all the other ones, no one else succeeded, and we had a lot of people trying. But I did what he wanted and when he wanted it, and it was the way to do it, and I realized that. But we had a strange relationship, and then it's a very personal thing with a producer and an artist because you spend so much time writing the songs, talking about, possibly rewriting, recording them, then going mixing them. Back in those days, it was all a manual thing, hour after hour, then being on the airplane from Florida to Atlanta or LA. And and uh, and once again, I was dealing with somebody that had to always be right, and and uh, but it worked fine. I have no complaints. I'm just explaining to you the way it was.
mhm. Okay.
So, um, me and you and a dog named Boo. The line "Love being a free man." This seems to be a little different. Like even of the moments it takes me back to, it's a different moment than the ballads or the more love songs, I guess. So
Yeah,
did this what inspired this song? Did you have a dog named Boo or
yeah. Well, I mean, I told you before about having gone to New York the first time and had while I was there, I had an interview with a big publisher up in New York, and just a chat to helped me get along with the songwriting. And he made a statement, and this is the Helen Reddy had a song called "Me and You Against the World," but that was afterward. He just said a statement to me. What's going down with songwriting now is it wasn't exactly me and you against the world, but it was me, you know, uh, two people, not two, but just it was me and you against the world, the way I remember it. And so I was trying to write a song, you and me, and I couldn't find a ram and couldn't. So I turned it around and I said, me and you. Now everybody thinks I made this story up, but this is because I've been asked this question and it's the same answer because it's the truth. I live in Florida, and we all have sliding glass doors on what they call a Florida room. I'm sitting there playing my guitar and trying to write this song about me and you. And I had a German Shepherd named Boo, and
Ah,
she came around the corner and looked through the glass door at me. And I'm trying to rhyme you. Now tell me that's not freaky.
Oh,
And that's what.
wow.
But that was that. Me and the dog named Boo was a real attempt to write a quote hit song based on something that I was told. As an example, I had seen the bright red Georgia clay and I knew that it sticks to your tire. There are no wheat fields in St. Paul. That's the second verse. And now motoring stately into big LA in this old car, that's all in my mind. And once again, it was an honest, I had found out something over the years about writing songs. You think you may just be writing to write a hit or to move somebody or something, but you can't really get away from the honesty in yourself as far as the way you say things. You may think you're hiding behind the lyric, but you're not. You can go back and listen to songs. And, oh yeah, at 82, I have been like that, or I did this and I didn't do this. And I always thought that was interesting and every songwriter from Bob Dylan to Paul McCartney will make a statement somewhere in an interview that they have no idea where the lyric comes from. It's the magic of music. You're right, sit down here with a piece of paper and a pencil and you got your guitar and blah 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 and then all of a sudden I remember to this day the bright red Georgia clay. I don't know. It's the freaky part of it. It makes you it makes I wonder. I wonder where it comes from. When I saw you standing there, I about fell out my chair. When you moved your mouth to speak, I felt the blood go to my feet. Well, that's I got lightheaded, but it came out of my mouth. I felt the blood go to my feet. So it's just I don't know.
Well, and so of course that's from I'd Love You to Want Me. What did was there a breakup or was do you write
No,
from personal experiences like as a
yes.
way to get it out, I guess?
Okay, exactly. You said it exactly right. I wanted to write a big ballad. That was there was no particular um, theme I was working on, and I just started strumming the guitar. That song starts almost dead. It goes wang when I saw you standing there, because it was too long after we recorded. Originally, it went wang wang when I saw you, but the the idea of the song I started, and when I came up with the line, I'd love you to want me the way I want you. And I started thinking, this is where you can't put your finger on this stuff. I remembered a music teacher when I was in sixth grade, I think it was, and just old enough to understand that a woman was different. Is that one of those kind of things? And there's this real pretty young uh, I think she was either a music teacher or not. No, it was a music teacher. And I started thinking, now you got to remember that we have all this sensational with the teachers and their students, all this crap. This is back in the days of innocence. There was none of that.
Right.
And I said, well, the obligation that she made for the title that they gave, see, that was that they gave her the title of being a teacher. Originally, I was doing about a nun. And I said, nah, that once again, you had to be real careful back in those days. but I never said that. I just implied that it was a forbidden love, and that was that's the reason the song was so big, was that you kind of want, it's like the Tallahatchie Bridge, that Bobby Gentry song. Nobody ever
Right.
figured out what she was throwing off the Tallahatchie Bridge. And I'm not comparing my song to that one, but I'm just saying that mystery in songs isn't bad as long as they feel the same mystery that you do. And that's how that song came about. And that, as opposed to every other song I recorded, we recorded that in Atlanta. We took it to New York, put strings on it, brought it back to Atlanta, worked overdubbed guitars, took it back to to New York, put strings on it. Robert John used to sing all the high parts on my records. It wasn't a girl. And Ellie Greenwich, who wrote lots of hits, Leader of the Pack and stuff back in the 50s, she was real instrumental in doing the backgrounds on I'd Love You to Want Me. And so I had a lot of help, and it was just fun. But we probably spent as much on that one track as we did on the whole album, which in those days wasn't that much money, but you could buy a lot with $20,000 back in those days.
Right. Um, so do you hear your voice differently now than you did then? You seem to imply that you didn't think that singing was as strong as the songwriting, but I think you have a great voice that I have enjoyed listening to. So how do you see it now versus then?
Acceptance. That's what it is. There is nothing that can define whether or not a voice is going to come through the airways when you can't see this great video about it. There's nothing to define what works and what doesn't. It's the believability to sing the lyrics so that the emotion that the lyric has comes to you in Iowa or wherever people are from. They're sitting in those days listening to a little radio late at night, and it was a magic deal to do. The '60s and the '70s, which were later than this, were the best times to grow up because of the innocence involved in everything and the freedom to do. We didn't have to worry about getting shot or carjacked or any of that crap. We just did it, and it was a magic time. And as far as being accepted as a singer, just like the how do you write the lyrics, I have no idea. I I do know the first time I ever sang, we played for a party for the teachers after we were in the talent show. And the first song I ever sang was What'd I Say by Ray Charles, which is nothing like what I would sing. But I do know that the first time I said, "Tell your mama not to treat me wrong, come I love you, daddy." That's the opening line. The room stopped. All the teachers stopped dancing and they stared at me. And and so there's something in your voice that draws attention to whatever it is you're singing. And that, once again, it's like writing the lyrics, there's no answer for it. So I view myself as being fortunate that they accepted me. I don't judge myself one way or the other. When I said that they said I wasn't much of a singer, that was the producer saying to me, give me the impetus to write rather than sit around and wait on somebody to find a song I could sing. And so I don't rate myself either way. It's more I'm grateful that it was accepted for whatever reason.
All right, Willie, I know our time's running down here. Do you have a final question you'd like to ask?
Uh, your career has spanned what, over 50 years now?
Yep.
Uh, what what would do you think would is your lasting legacy that you want people to remember you for?
By the way, Willie, I can tell by your accent you're from Chicago. I just know that. I feel it in my heart. No, I don't have if I have a legacy, it's there. And it's that I still get letters from around the world that I seem to bring peace to people. If that not political peace, I'm talking about, you're tired, you've been at work, whatever, and and you're listening to the radio or going online or something, and you come by one of my songs and it makes you stop and just listen. You're not. It's not that I'm great or the song is great. There's something in what you hear that kind of helps you wind down, and I think that's nice. I really do.
Well, I think you're a storyteller to me. I have your song playing right now on my Facebook stories, and a lot of people have commented like, "Oh, they share like their thoughts of where they were when they hear the song too." So, in that way, it seems to me like you are definitely a storyteller through your music and your voice, and that's timeless. I think people will be listening to these songs and telling their stories for years to come. So that's quite an honor, and I hope that you feel that.
Nice.
Um, so you mentioned that you have another project coming up. So can you tell us about that?
Yes, I was hoping you'd ask me because this is a thing that is near and dear to my heart. I've worked with a man named Billy Ertz. We were playing in a band together in 1965 when he was drafted to go to Vietnam, and he went and he came back a decorated veteran. He's worked as my manager for 40 years. We're both from Florida. Florida to most people is the beach and partying down and all this stuff. But we were born in a time, it was a simple time. And we're doing this project that has four songs on it. And Billy has two real personal songs, one about his guitar and another about fishing as a young boy in St. Petersburg, Florida. And I have a couple that were, and they're four songs. They're all about Florida, and they're all about this is really what it was like to be in Florida. And we're working on it before you called, and I can hear the song, the one Billy wrote about uh, waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning because he couldn't wait to go out fishing and things like. It's just stuff that we grew up and we're really being retro when you're going back to being 10 years old and that sort of stuff. But that once again, the emotions that are in the song and the truth that comes out in the way you've written the songs is the same thing. So this is something that's a work of love, and we're not trying to be anything. It's probably more country flavored than anything, but it's just so much fun to reach so far back and then to realize that you still have the same feelings about things that you loved then and still do, and that's the whole deal.
How is it like enhanced maybe by working with someone else that you shared these experiences with?
Well, it's four songs. Billy wrote two of them, and I wrote two of them. We sing. I sing a line or two. He'll sing a line or two. So we're jumping into each other's songs because there's so much common ground.
Wow.
And Billy, like I said, he's been doing this stuff for me for 40 years. He travels with me. Every show I've done in the last 40 years, he's been on the stage with me. And so we go back a long way and we've worked on lots of things together. And Billy's written songs for all sorts of people from Joe Cocker to Kenny Chesney and on and on and on. But he lives in Nashville. I used to, but I'm back in Florida. So he's the workhorse of putting the mixing and doing everything together. Just like when you edit the show, he does that part of it. And so we're connected at the hip as it is, and we our wives are good friends and everything. I mean, but because we're going far, way far back into our childhood, which even though we didn't know each other as children, we shared the true Florida lifestyle that those of us that were born in Florida, and I've lived here, well, I've lived in LA and I've lived in Nashville, but basically I spent 90% of my life in Florida. And so it's a real fun thing to do is the best way I can put it.
Well, this sounds really great. When will this be out, do you think?
Well, I don't know. Well, when I say we can do what we want, and they'll share it on the web. Well, I mean, if we said we wanted this to be next, they would. But we've learned that they have agendas for releasing things
Sure.
and they have time limits, and we don't. I don't tell anybody how to do their job because if I could do it, I'd do it. But and they did like the idea of this, and this is the first time we'll be using AI tracks, which is the way the world's going. As long as the voices are real, then you don't have a problem with it. It's so much fun just to put in tracks and get out. You get back the track you want without having to spend $100,000 on it. And it's just this is an experiment in that too. So it's kind of a a multi first time around doing something, but
Well,
very enjoyable. That's the best thing I can say.
well, I'm glad that you did mention AI tracks and you that you like using those and how much fun and cost saving and time saving even I think a lot of artists have not really embraced using AI, but
They have to.
it's pretty amazing, I think, the things
Uh,
it can do.
well, I'm a musician. I've been in AFTRA, which is the American Federation of Television and Radio Artists, for how longer I can think, probably 60 years. And so I understand the musicians and the quandary of not using musicians. But I also we have cut a lot of songs that they were demanding double and triple rate rather than because the reason they can get it is because other people will pay them. And those are the musicians you want on your stuff. But they, in essence, it's caught up with them. Of course, they're all rich now. It doesn't make any difference. But no, I don't. Once again, we're not. I'm not. I have nothing to do with the artists that are on the radio or on TV or the big. These people spend more on one video than I've probably spent in my entire career on recording stuff. It's just a different numbers game. I mean, when you look at Taylor Swift and the billions of hits, and it's not just her, there's a lot of artists, but she's of course the ultimate. She's a genius. I mean, an absolute phenomenal thinker.
Yes.
She had her pulse on young girls when she was a young girl. She just and that she's grown and she's just absolutely the nth degree of what, as Bob Dylan is a songwriter, okay, sing, or Paul McCartney, into these geniuses, and she's right at the top. And I have always admired her, even from the early day, the Romeo and Juliet thing. It was just, snow on the beach. Come on, give me a break. It's just too good, But I never would be competing with those geniuses. I'm just plugging along, doing my thing.
Well, your thing has lasted a very long time and made a lot of people happy. So I am so honored that you were our guest today, and I hope that you'll come back when your new project is out and tell us how it went and what's coming up next after that. We'd love to have you again.
Well, thank you. I enjoyed it, and
Thank
sometimes,
you.
Willie, you're still there.
Yes.
Where are you from? Arkansas?
No, we're
Where?
from southeastern Kentucky.
Well, I wasn't that far off. Southeastern, Kentucky. I've never spent a lot of time. I have a place in Franklin, North Carolina that I go every summer. That's just above Atlanta in the mountains. But I love that part of the country. Kentucky's not that far. A little, a little west. Well, that's good. I could tell by your accent that you were one of those Yankee people. I knew.
He gets a lot of comments on that accent. So,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
All
No,
right.
that's good. Listen, I enjoyed talking to you.
Well, it's
We
been a
enjoyed talking to you.
great conversation, and thank you so much.
Okie dokie, y'all keep it in the road.